I had such a blast reading the most brain-dead reviews of Armored Core 6 last time that I decided to do it again. But this time, we'll take a look at the Steam reviews. Let's begin.
Can't sex the ice worm. Worst game ever. This game is absolute hearts. Easily the worst game FromSoft has put out in years. Either you slave to the meta, or you lose to overtuned DPS boss checks. Can't believe I spent $50 on this crap. I got this game from a friend, I'm glad they enjoy it. Personally, I think the gameplay itself is very tedious and mediocre. The songbirds will get you through the whole champagne. I don't buy games for PvP, and that's all this game is going to rely on in the end. If you like the tedious story or are a AC fan from the early days, then honestly this is a game for you. But to compare a Souls game to this game, you might as well punch yourself in the face until it's real. Took 11 years for this big ol' luck. I want my money back. 112.3 hours on record. It's just not a good game. The bosses are nearly impossible and the in-between is nothing. Just total unbalanced BS. I think their patches have made it even worse. Save yourself the frustration, don't believe the hardcore that it's hard but doable, it's just BS. 28.6 hours on record. This ain't it, Chief. 25.2 hours on record. This game is a declaration from FromSoft that there are more Souls fans than Armored Core fans. The hallmarks of a Souls game are all here. Animation locks and poor player attack tracking that forces massive commitment to every action. Perfect enemy tracking that invalidates positioning and maneuver and rewards split last-second dodging. Rapid player stun locks that remove player agency and lead to instant death for a single missed dodge. Enemy stun locks which are only available at great player expense and take mild pieces of the HP pool of enemy bosses. A ranged system which punishes attempts to remain outside enemy melee range. Boss melee attacks with lunges that often exceed weapon lock-on range. And occasionally, you might get to do an AC versus AC duel that lets an Armored Core player remember what this series used to be about, and use that old skill set of maneuvering and tracking. But then you'll be back to the spectacle, the enormous bosses whose wildly cinematic presentation and flashy attacks really cement how insignificant you are as you spend your AC's entire ammunition storage to whittle away at their health bar only to die on one missed attack. It looks nice. But I feel stupid now for making fun of all the articles trying to convince Elden Ring players that Armored Core might be a different genre. It used to be, but it's not now. I'm still going to fight through it, for old time's sake, but I'm not playing an Armored Core game, and I'm not enjoying my first Souls game. Dark Souls with mechs. Not my cup of tea. If you're buying as an OG Armored Core player hoping it's like the old school Armored Core games, then don't, it's not and you'll be disappointed. New players on the other hand will probably enjoy this, although it's unbalanced when it comes to enemy strength versus boss strength, especially in early game. Most enemies die with one shot while bosses will take pretty much all your ammo even in the early stages. It's kinda weird but not the worst. Overall the game is okay but not what I was expecting as an OG Armored Core player. 4 hours on record. Product refunded.
Now that one really makes me laugh. It looks like this OG Armored Core player got filtered so hard by the helicopter for possibly 4 hours that he decided to rage quit. How can you possibly judge a game by just playing it a couple hours and then asking for your money back? It looks like someone else got filtered.
Not Armored Core. Refunded after 45 minutes. Is it hard? Yes. Is it inaccessible? Not any longer. The changes made to Balthius have seriously taken the sting out of getting over the Chapter 1 hump, which is where a lot of more casual players would be tapping out. More people getting their ass kicked by the Sea Spider and Ibis is a good thing, because by those points you have the correct tools to reliably handle those bosses. Balthius needed fixing and hard. Not because the boss was inherently difficult beyond the overload of hard tracking spamfire, but because at that point in the game your toolbox was extremely limited and your options were lacking. people who face a roller game with twin Zimmermans are going to see their OP build get nerfed soon enough. That makes me somewhat smug for the fact I'm closing on NG Plus and I didn't need to use a crutch build. Get good to all of you running 2 Zimmerman and 2 Songbird. Your time is coming. This game can still get you killed before you even begin a mission through suboptimal parts choices, and for all the bravado of people suggesting you can win with any configuration, the answer is no, no you can't, not unless you're doing something really sketchy to the game code. It's already been proven that you can't no-hit this game. Baltius pretty much removes that idea from the off, and I suspect even no Death True S runs are going to take time before we see unedited footage showing that someone has mastered the art of Zen in this game. One lesson I've taken from this review, from Soft's community, is one of the more toxic cesspits I've gone near. You lot really need to go and touch grass. To respond to the most typical arguments, it's not for you, gatekeeping is a terrible look, and whilst I entirely agree there's a space for these games to exist, if the skill requirement wipes out the majority of the people before they get to the meat of the game, that's overtuning. We saw that back in the day with World of Warcraft and TBC, and it took them multiple adjustments to dial in the difficulty so that there was a space for most skill levels to participate. Get good has become so toxic that at this point it no longer qualifies as a means of argument. It has no place in any community and needs shooting with fire. If that's your sole response, then perhaps gaming as a whole is no longer for you. Go touch grass. And anyone running dual Zimmermans are automatically disqualified from having any opinion, regardless of which NG Plus you happen to be on. Go sit in the corner and wait for your crutch to be kicked out, then we'll chat. This game veers a strange line between actually difficult and somewhat brainless. The difficulty curve isn't a curve, it's a set of spikes, between some very deep valleys. In some senses this is the easiest from soft game out there, but it's also the most inconsistent for difficulty pacing. 1.02 has changed the calculus quite a bit, with Baltius no longer being a total wall block that sanded off a lot of players unwilling to run crutch builds or being willing to find ways to cheese out the massive spam that Baltius threw about. He's a legit boss now as opposed to just a dumb, unfun massive grind. I am less happy about the nerfs to Sea Spider. They were kinda unwarranted, though I suspect they're laying the ground for a Songbird's nerf. And Ibis really didn't need modifying, as at that point you have the tool set to cope with what's being thrown at you, and by this point you've learned the cadence the game expects from you. However, much like others, I absolutely do not recommend it to AC fans. It's not a proper AC game imho, and I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone who plays a turtle in DS. You have to be fast and able to avoid lots of tracking fire, or you're going to have a very, very bad day. Note for the comments section: if you're going to leave a comment, make sure it has something constructive or useful to add, otherwise your comment doesn't get to stick around. Free speech doesn't apply here. My house, my rules. Not recommended. 20.1 hours on record.
Alright, well that last one was extremely unhinged. Here he is telling the Souls community that they need to go touch grass, but he's writing paragraphs upon paragraphs bitching about Balteus. The amount of sodium and copium coming out of that review was off the charts. Now, thanks so much for watching. I think we lost enough brain cells for today. I'll see you guys on the next one.